Welcome back to Animated Times. Joe Todd with you. Today we're going to talk about everything we know about the Force in Star Wars. The Force is what gives the Jedi their power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together. Obi-Wan Kenobi explains to Luke Skywalker. So far, so vague. The physical world has various energies and fields, such as an electromagnetic field. So energy field is effectively meaningless. Science fiction, technobabble. This shouldn't be a surprise because despite having existed for over 1,000 generations, the Jedi don't study every aspect of the Force. After all, the Jedi is a religious order, not a scientific organization. Think of it this way. An expert at wielding a power doesn't necessarily understand what it is. A physicist knows how electrons work, but if you want to install wiring in a house, you should probably call an electrician. Obi-Wan's vagueness leaves his words open to interpretation by us, the audience. That might be deliberate, as Star Wars creator George Lucas originally intended for the Force to be a spiritual phenomenon, to be simply mystical or magical. We could stop there, but not only is that deeply unsatisfying, it's contradicted by the phrase energy field, which implies a scientific explanation. As books, games, and cartoons have been added to the Star Wars franchise, we've been given more information to fill in the gaps. One important tidbit appears in the Clone Wars animated TV series, when the disembodied spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn tells Yoda how he can exist after being killed in The Phantom Menace. I am the manifestation of the Force, a force that consists of two parts. Living beings generate the living force, which in turn powers the wellspring that is the cosmic force. All energy from the living force, from all things that have ever lived, feeds into the cosmetic force, binding everything. Qui-Gon's speech reveals that energy created by living things is converted to a form separate from life, splitting the force into two categories, a living force and a cosmic force. Makes no sense. However, because life is an integral part of the cosmos, the universe viewed as an orderly system. Interesting though, Qui-Gon's logical error in classifying the fictional force mirrors the real history of how scientists developed a concept that explains how organisms interact with one another and their environment, ecosystems. The ecosystem concept was proposed in 1936 by ecologist Arthur Tansley, who pointed out that living things are not only parts of an environment, adding that there is a constant interchange, not only between organisms, but between organic and inorganic. Tansley named the ensemble of living and non-living parts ecosystems, calling them the basic units of nature on the face of the earth. This leads us to The Last Jedi, when Luke asks Rey, "What do you know about the Force?" She replies, "It's a power the Jedi have and lets them control people and make things float." After correcting her with his catchphrase, "Every word in that sentence was wrong," Luke says, "It's the energy between all things, a tension, a balance that binds the universe together." Luke's explanation is just as vague as Obi-Wan's, but this time there's less for us to interpret because during The Force Awakens, Rey gains experience using that energy. So when Luke asks her to feel the Force in The Last Jedi, she's able to articulate its true nature, which in the film presents a montage of images that juxtapose living things against water, rocks, and bones. As Rey says, the island, birds, death, and decay. That feeds new life. Warm, cold, peace, violence. In other words, the Force is consistent with an ecosystem, in which there's continuous exchange between living and non-living things, which fuels the ecological cycle. But what stuff is being transferred in that cycle exactly? From Einstein's equation, E=mc², we learn that energy and mass are equivalent, and according to the law of conservation of mass, we know that matter cannot be created or destroyed. This means ecologists can study the flow of biomass through the ecosystem as if it were energy, which is constantly converted from one form to another. For example, plants turn light energy, electromagnetic radiation, from the sun's rays into chemical energy, which is stored or released by metabolism, and it builds and breaks bonds in food molecules. Now, as energy is transferred when organisms eat organic matter, The stuff cycling around an ecosystem is energy in its various forms. Contrary to Obi-Wan's description of the Force as an energy field, it's actually all energy within an ecosystem. Now, the last thing to consider is where the Force exists. Ecosystem is one of science's most well-known words, but it's also one of the most misused. Many people, including conservationists, say ecosystem when they mean habitat, a natural environment that can support life. Unlike habitats, however, an ecosystem isn't a place, but an analogy for organisms as the moving parts in a machine powered by energy. Arthur Tansley's ecosystem concept was inspired by physics, which studies everything in a space, the whole universe in the case of cosmology, as if it were inside a sealed box. For energy, a closed thermodynamic system, knowing the ecosystems could be different kinds and sizes. Tansley noted that an ecosystem could be a solar system, a planet, a climatic region, a plant or animal community, an individual organism, or an organic molecule or an atom. An ecosystem can be any environment, from human gut to Amazon rainforest, that you choose. It's a convenient way for a scientist to study the interaction between its parts in isolation. In reality, an ecosystem is not an isolated, closed system, as its parts can cross boundaries. Birds migrate between habitats to breed, for instance, and even Earth itself is open to exchange. The solar radiation that powers almost all life on our planet comes from the sun. The energy exchange between living and non-living things, therefore, flows beyond the confines of a planet or even galaxy. It extends throughout the entire cosmos. Thanks to the words and imagery of The Last Jedi, we can finally propose a working definition for the Force that's both comprehensive and concise, scientific, yet uses language that everyone can understand. The Force is energy that flows through the cosmic ecosystem. That's pretty much all we know about the Force for now. Now hit that like button if you liked the video, and don't forget to click on that subscribe button too to get more awesome content from Animated Times.